right, today's guest numbers are absolutely phenomenal. 255 sides in 2018, $128 million in volume. That is absolutely super rock star status. Today's conversation is with Brian Ladd out of Bend, Oregon. Brian, how are you?
Hey, I'm great. It's a little snowy here. We just had the snowstorm of the century. We have 4 feet of snow outside my door, so I have to admit I haven't seen my office in a few days, but it's been great skiing. So
Awesome. You showed me those pictures. Those pictures are unbelievable, man. Out your window there, that's unbelievable. Wow.
yeah, we've got I think about 3 to 4 feet of snow in my yard right now, and we get a lot of snow here in the Cascades in Central Oregon, but Bend is a little bit of a rain shadow effect. We're kind of on the dry side, so we're not used to snow like this. So it's fun,
Wow.
actually. I'm at home right now. My daughter is hooking up the dog in a harness right now to go have her pull her around the neighborhood.
Nice. Nice. Gotta love that. Gotta love that. Hey, so let's jump right into it. Let's talk about your team. I mean, $128 million in volume, 255 slides. That's absolutely phenomenal. Tell me about your team, the makeup of your team.
So the way I've got a pretty traditional team concept from the surface. If when you look at it, I have 5 agents. They started basically as buyer agents. I've revised my model recently where they're more rounded, full agents. But 5 agents myself, and then 2 full-time admin, one on the listing and marketing side, and one on transaction and operations.
Nice, nice. And so you mentioned that your 5 agents, they started off as just buyer's agents and you were just taking listings or?
Yeah, so primarily listings have always been under me, and now we're changing that model a little bit. But to take one step back, I grew my team a little differently. I came from a development and construction background prior to moving to Oregon. And that was really my foothold into starting my team over, starting real estate here in Bend. And when I landed my first project here, what I didn't want to do is what a traditional agent does of sitting your open house, sitting your project as much as you can, and then just opening it up as open floor time for random agents. I think that's an absolute death blow to a project when you have agents that aren't engaged in it. So what I did is I brought in agents on my team and made them kind of a referral partner on the project, but they had to be highly trained in that project, know the ins and outs of it, and obviously they can sell outside the project as well. But what I did is as I started getting more and more projects, I built my team that way. My first project was a Tethero golf course community here in Bend, and I brought on 2 agents that were specialists in resort type properties, and they were my first quote unquote buyer agents, yet they were affiliated with the project. So as my projects grew, my team kind of grew out of that. And now I have a few agents that aren't affiliated with a specific project, but none of them are traditional listing agents. That said, for upward mobility and career, I'm trying to open that possibility for them as well.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So most of the training, is that done by you for your team or how do you handle that?
Training. So I have brought on some very experienced agents. Many of my agents had been even with Sotheby's previously. So at the beginning, I didn't have to train quite as much. These were seasoned veterans. Some of them had been doing $5-10 million of volume a year. That said, we can all be better. So I had been traditionally doing the training, but not in a fashion that was structured enough. And what really opened my eyes, and I pulled enough on it for years, is I hired a coach. I actually jumped a ferry organization, and I had put that off for a few years because when I looked at myself and I said, hey, I got to $60 million of volume without an assistant, and I'm over $100 million as a team, I was egotistical enough to say, what can coaching teach me? I've read the books about teams. Why do I need it? But then when I went and got a coach, it really opened my eyes to the next level of training. And I didn't know that how little I knew, I didn't know. And when I went to the first ferry training, I realized there's a much higher level we can get to with scripting and role playing and all the different things that we weren't focused on. I was kind of execution-based guy. I came from operations. I had a family development business with my father, and we built homes and developed neighborhoods, and then we had a sales side of it. And I was always came from an operational part of it, where sales and kind of the sales techniques always came last. And we're trying to be a little bit more forward on that. So now we have weekly coaching calls with Ferry, and then I'm also sending them to their events.
Nice. That's great. By the way, I don't know if you hear it, there's a little bit of a noise in, I don't know, the speaker. I don't know where it's coming from, but it sounds like something's tweaking. But hopefully they can edit it out or tweak it or whatever.
Okay, sorry, that might be rubbing my shirt here. I'll try to not move around quite so much.
Oh, hey, no worries, no worries. So when we talk about, I know you were a builder before, and now you're into retail sales, I would imagine, mostly retail sales.
Yep.
Transition had to be interesting, just to get totally out of the building side of it and go all in on retail. How was that?
Yeah, it was different for me. And, when I was a builder, I was always used to providing the product.
Right.
In the sense where we would create the item of value, and people came to us, and the salespeople in my mind were kind of the middlemen, right? Mm-hmm. And for me to go to that kind of service role where I wasn't actually providing that good, and to becoming someone that was just providing the service, and I had to continually prove my value to both sides of the equation, the buyers and the sellers. It was a humbling experience, and it was a big change for me. But I made that decision when I came here for a lot of reasons. Mm-hmm. I have utmost respect for builders and developers. I think a lot of agents, especially novice agents, look at builders and say, "Oh, the builders make so much money. I'm just making a couple of percent. They're making all the money." I couldn't disagree with that more. The builders take all the risks, and it's a hard job. And when construction costs go up, they get squeezed. They're exposed to all kinds of liability, not only from a lawsuit side if there's construction defects, but then the other side of it is they're exposed on downturns, and those banks come after them personally and take everything they have. And I saw that firsthand. Between my grandfather and my father, they went through, 3 or 4 housing corrections since the 1950s till now, probably more. But 3 or 4 that took them down, where, at one point, my grandfather had a 30 or 40 year land position in the Chicago area with 8,000 lots out in front of them. And, housing corrections take that away from you. And when I saw my grandfather pass away a couple of years ago, after building literally 4,000 or 5,000 homes and die with, fairly limited resources, I looked at him and I'm like, the prices that man paid as a developer and a builder to be left with what he has, I decided that I never wanted to put my family's finances on the line that much. So I tried to reel in the risk and said, how can I take my knowledge of building and development and build a career on it without having to be the person on the bottom line, being the builder and signing those huge construction loans anymore. So when I came to Bend, Oregon, I found that there was a lot of great agents here, mm-hmm. but there weren't many agents that truly understood new development, and that's where I found my niche.
Got it. Awesome. So now that you're in retail and you have this great team, tell us about, let's say, how you find your business. Where does your business come from? Let's start there. Where do you source? I know you source your business, so where would you say the bulk of your business comes from?
So I grew out of projects. When I first came here, and so the kind of career I'm talking about is about 2009, 2010 on. That's when I became a true quote unquote realtor and real estate agent. The way I built, despite having done developments back in Colorado, I came here and had zero contacts. I knew zero people in the state and had to start from the beginning. And I started pretty traditionally getting my business from Zillow and some of those kind of third-party sources, and just hustle, the traditional open houses, et cetera. And it was humbling after having done, developments for 10 years to come to Central Oregon, where I was here in the recession in a crawl space of a short sale. That was a $100,000 short sale. And it took 6 months to close, and we're in the crawl space looking for a leak that's causing mold, and I'm trying to get a $1,500 commission off of it. I had to question myself that I was doing the right thing by going down the sales only path. That said, I started working with builders and representing builders. And then within about a year or two, I had sold more lots in a development than anybody else, including the on-site sales staff. So I got that project. Out of that project, that represented a good majority of my business. Upwards of 50, 60% of my business came from that project, on-site sales, et cetera. But then as I had a bigger history of past clients, I started doing more resales with them. When they were buying in our project, I sold their other home to get them in here, and it kind of blossomed out from there. As I stand now, I have 3 different new home projects. Those 3 collectively represent about 60% of our gross volume of our team. And then about that other 40% is broken down into either resale listings, retail resales, or buyer activity. And buyer activity is about 20%. Yeah, so about 20% of our is business or resales, 20% is buyers, and then my 3 projects make up the remainder of that.
Wow. Sounds good. So I'm curious, being that the bulk of your business, 60% are from different builder projects, what's that day like? What's the routine for the agents that work that for you?
So kind of depends on project, but traditionally we're anywhere from about 3 to 5 days a week of on-site, either in sales centers or model homes. And what we do is we have obviously the on-site hours, but then we have training outside of that. We have weekly marketing meetings on each project of all the things that we're working on for them. And where we're different than a lot of agents that come in to sit a seat, right, in a project is we bring a big marketing force. That's what I'm really known for in this town is my marketing and video work. And we bring in a kind of a de facto marketing arm for these projects and builders that don't have the capacity to do it on their own. But so we spend a lot of time, at least once a week, doing a marketing meeting on those, training, and then when the agents are at those projects doing, client follow-up, et cetera, through our CRMs.
Awesome. So do you have a manager that works beneath you or next to you, or do you pretty much run everything?
So historically, that's been me. I've been managing the projects and the relationships and the training, and that has proven to be tough, and it's stretched me thin, and it's not necessarily my skill set. So about 2 months ago, I hired an operations manager who is having the weekly accountability meetings, kind of the go-between between my agents and marketing. And then kind of looking over their shoulder for all of the transactions. And that's been really big and has freed up my time. And as that's freed up my time, what it's allowed me to do is re-implement a plan to, kind of be a rainmaker and go bring in new business and projects without having to, chase my tail 5 or 6 days a week. So that's been really important. And that right-hand position is new for me. And is tough for a type A person like me to let go of that scope of work. I want to touch everything, but there's a capacity issue and kind of a quality of life issue that necessitated me doing that.
Right. I totally understand. So let me ask you this. What is your average commission check and what is your average sales price for your team?
So my average for the whole year was $425,000 is for the average sales price. Keep in mind that takes into account quite a few home sites. We do about 40 to 50 a year that average about 300,000 a lot, which is a pretty good number, but some of your markets that may seem cheap. But our average house sale price is probably closer to 600-700, with the lands right around 300. And then, we do have some above $1 million sales. We probably do a dozen or so above the $1 million mark. But it's not really the bread and butter of the Bend, Oregon market.
Right.
An average commission check, is, gross is about 2.5 points. After we co-op, if we do that, And then after paying Sotheby's, we split that 50-50 with the team, and I cover all the overhead.
Nice. And I'm curious, do you have different awards like for your team? Is it what special do you do for the team, or do you? I mean, are there any kind of awards or dinners, or what do you do specifically for the team to keep them pumped up and ready to go?
That's a challenge for me. So I'm not the touchy-feely award type of guy, and I'm learning that culture is as important as anything.
Mhm.
And I need to do a better job there. I'm not, I'm more about accountability and getting things done, and think that commission will speak for itself, and a good income that is 2 or 3x what an agent was doing before they joined my team would be enough. But I'm also learning there's kind of a human side of this business that is not as not as easy to I don't know, to quantify. So we're doing more of that. We're doing a lot more, team meetings over lunch, and we just had a great event the other night over at our project where we had a lot of fun and did some giveaways. But I don't do enough of that. So culture is a big thing that we're going to start working on here, second quarter of this year.
And do you plan on, are there plans to grow the team even more, or what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I've always been very careful. I don't grow the team for the team's sake. As opposed to some agents, I've actually never recruited. Every agent on my team has come to me. And when they first met with me, I said, sorry, I don't have any plans on growing. And if they had enough grit and follow up, eventually they wore me down. And then I would sit down with my team and say, okay, I've got somebody hungry here. Do we have capacity? What I've always done is sat down with my team and kind of left it up to them in the sense that, to make sure that everyone has the living, they're making the living they want. And then they've got the runway to work if they so desire. But if everyone is working and they're redlining and they can't work any harder, that's when I'll bring in a team member. So what I haven't done is, I'm not the traditional agent that is recruiting all the time and firing all the time. I've had zero turnover. Well, with the exception, I've had 2 people leave the state, and they've both moved to new markets in Colorado and Boston. But other than that, I've never actually had turnover on the team. So I don't recruit that much, and I do have plans on bringing on just probably 1 or 2 more agents, just because we have a big enough funnel of online leads and other sources of leads that we've built over the last 7-8 years that my agents can't keep up. We're not making the proper calls, and we have this valuable, egg of potential commissions that we're not touching. And that I'm going to bring on probably 1 to 2 agents to do that. And then after that, I just don't have, desire to grow.
Got it. So when you talk about online leads, do they go to all the agents, or is that specific to like a couple of agents on the team that are just there just to handle those leads?
So traditionally, that's been to all the agents, and we use the Boomtown platform, and we use their Shark Tank function on that allows people to claim it if they have capacity. And so if an agent's busy, they're out with clients, they're overwhelmed, they've been trained not to push that accept button on that client. And then hopefully they don't take clients that they don't have the capacity to truly vet and do all the follow-up that they need to do to actually convert that lead. But as we've gotten busier recently, well, as our projects have become more demanding and have required a little more attention recently as sales have slowed down, I think we're going to see a little bit more division between the online leads and my agents that are growing into full listing project agents. I think that's a tough thing to be good at both things. And because to be a true online converter, you need a phone next to your hand, and you need to make 100 calls a day, and you need to be really on top of all your drip campaigns. And I think that's tough to do when you're also managing listings and projects. So I think that's going to be a division that we're going to see a little bit more of in the future. And it may just be a performance thing. If the agents are too busy and they're not processing those leads, they might not be getting those leads in the future until that capacity opens back up.
Right. So when you talk about Boomtown, what other tools do you use to keep everything afloat?
So the transaction software that we use is SkySlope. That's through Sotheby's, and that's a fine transaction management software. And then for our we have two CRMs, and I hate that. I would love to have one CRM. Um, our forward-looking CRM for online leads or walk-ins from our project is in Boomtown, and I think that does a really good job at that. And then we also integrate BombBomb videos. And what we've done is we've filmed a whole series of videos from, hey, I just saw you just registered on the website. Welcome. I'll be giving you a call in the next 5 minutes. That automatically gets sent to them as a video and a text as soon as they register on my website. And then, we have a sequential 2 days later, a week later, a month later videos, et cetera. And that's all BombBomb built into the Boomtown. And then we also used, and then my other CRM is Contactually. And Contactually is not as good about online lead conversion. It doesn't intuitively tie into a website where people search and register for properties. But I found that was good for past clients. So basically, as soon as the client's closed, we work them through Contactually. But until that point, it's Boomtown. And then, some of the other small tools that we use is Hootsuite, which helps us tie in some of our social media campaigns. And then we also use text alerts. I don't even drive by text alerts, something like that, to capture client information from signs and advertisements. And that seems to work real well. Offhand, I'm sure we're using a bunch of other things from Trello to, I don't know, a bunch of other software, but those are our primary platforms.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So tell me something. 2019, what are your numbers? What are your goals for 2019?
I always shoot big. When I was doing 20 million, I said I was going to do 50, and the next year I did it. And then when I was doing 50, I said 75 million, and we outshot that. This is the exception. So I think I'm going to do about what we did in 2018. I think we're going to be just around 125 million or so. And not growing scares me, but what I'm trying to do is diversify my business plan outside of the projects so that if we sell through a project, which we're getting pretty close on a few, or if a builder takes sales in-house because, they want to, fulfill their long dream of building their own sales organization, which both of those are happening to me. I'm not as susceptible. Having 60% of my business plan in a couple projects is scary. So what I'm trying to do is continue to grow our portfolio of projects or listings outside of that, and then also do a lot more past client follow-up and care to get more referrals as those projects wind down. And so I think it's going to take a lot of work to maintain the volume we have, but then I think the long-term plan will be a lot more solid. And so I think this is kind of one of those, you feel like you're spinning your wheels all year, but I think we're going to come out with a more diverse business plan that's going to, give me the next decade of business that I need here in town.
Right. Smart, really smart. I think that database is huge. That's great.
I undervalue the database. When you're writing hundreds of deals and you've got 5 projects, which I had 2 years ago, the thought of going backwards and trying to nurture past clients, I overlooked it. Shame on me. And, only recently when I sat down and looked through the database and realized that we had 700 past clients and I was giving them very little attention. I mean, the amount of orphan clients that I was leaving behind, just shame on me for doing that. But the amount of business as well that I was leaving behind was incredible. And that's what we're trying to go pick back up. And if I could give any advice to new agents or even veteran agents, that if you have past business, you've got to focus on that. Once you have that past client, love them, and that's your future. And when I hear from agents, I had an agent come into me the other day and he said, Brian, what's the magic? How can I grow? How can I do business? And I asked him, I said, how many deals have you done over the last 10 years in the area? And he said, well, about 500. But yet here he was struggling to do enough business here in 2019 in a changing market. And he had 500 past clients. I said, what are you doing for those past clients? He goes, not much. I call some of them every once in a while. And it's just incredible. And here he is, he's been in the business for a couple decades. So he's not as tech savvy, et cetera, but yet he's trying to compete with young guns on Zillow and Google pay-per-click and all these things. And he's chasing his tail and he's not getting anywhere. And he has this past database that he's not loving on. It's, so one piece of advice, every time you have a past client, that's gold. And once you have a book of 100 or 200, there's very little reason to try to go get new buyers online. You've got enough business right there.
Absolutely. I totally agree. It's interesting because oftentimes, I talk to agents about the exact same thing. Last year was the first year that I actually did no prospecting, and everything I did came straight out of my database.
Incredible.
And I too went through a long phase where, I didn't love on my past clients. There were just times when I had friends, other agent friends that would say I pretty much abused it, and they're still giving me a ton of business. But again, several years ago, I started organizing the database. It's paid off. It's really paid off. And I mean, it really, really paid off well. So that's a great tip. And that was actually where I was going next, is if you have any other tips for like a newer agent or a veteran agent that's trying to do more business. The database, I think that's huge. Anything else? Any other suggestion?
I think you build from your strength, right? I think you find what you're good at and go out from there. When I came to Bend, what I was good at is home construction, but yet I wasn't going to build homes. So I went and chased builders. I spoke their language, and not a lot of agents do. So find what you're good at. I know people that almost any business plan works. What's funny is there's a million different ways, from expireds to door knocking to cold calling to geo farms to blah, blah, blah. And the secret is they all work, but the secret is it takes a lot of work. Right. And there's a lot of people that dabble in all different types of business plans, but they don't get deep enough. They'll try expireds for a month or two, and they'll try a few mailings once or twice, and they'll try this once or twice. Mm-hmm. It's consistency, and you just got to stay after it. I know a guy in Colorado who, he branded himself the Condo King, and he was new to the business and went and knocked on 1,000 condo doors saying, "Hey, I'm the Condo King." And he wasn't the Condo King. He was a false prophet, but within 6 months, he was the Condo King. Right. And he had a book of $2 million a year doing condos. He just created it. So just pick something and make sure it's a good plan, but pick something and stick with it. It's all about the execution. And then, another piece of advice that I would give is I was very nervous about launching into sales only. And I was working my butt off, and, I couldn't work any harder. It was all day, every day. But you have dinner with the kids, then you go back and work until midnight, and you get up the next morning. And I got to the point I was burnt out. I was on the ER table, with them checking my heart because I had heart arrhythmias. And I was just working as hard as a person can work. And I was scared. And because I had this kind of generational experience of seeing my dad and my grandfather both go through housing recessions and lose everything as builders. And I think I had some kind of generational scarring. I was living their fears. And when I saw that, I was fearful that I wasn't going to be successful. And I called this agent from Colorado who I respected, who had a big team. And I talked about all the different things I was doing. And his advice, he goes, "Brian, you will be successful." He goes, "If you're going to execute half of what you're saying and you're going to continue to work this hard," he goes, "your only challenge is going to be enough time with your kids and maintaining your health." He said, there's very few people that actually work that hard in this business. And he goes, "You will make it." And I had another life coach that I spoke with a couple of years ago, and he just looked at me and goes, "Brian, you're good enough. Chill out. You're good enough." And having a few people look down and say, "Okay, I've been there. I've done that. You're going to make it. Relax, take a deep breath." That was the big moment for me. And that's what a piece of advice that I would give an agent. If you're truly going to work hard, you're going to make it. Relax. And not relax, it's easy to say when you have $100 million book of business to say relax, but don't worry. Don't let it cost your family time, so I'm not sure how to summarize that, but it can be done. And there's a lot of other people that just quit. And what I've found is that as you're in there grinding, you think there's so many competitors. I came into Bend and there's 1,800 agents here, and we're in a 100,000 person town. And I was like, man, I wonder if I can be in the top 10% of this. So I was just grinding for a few years and running and grinding. And then I look up and I'm in the top 20. And then I kind of look and I'm grinding. And I look up and I'm in the top 5. And then I look up and I'm number 1. And then I look up and number 2 does half or third of the volume that I'm doing. And I'm doing, I think it was 50x the average volume of the agent here in town. And it's like, whoa, so if you can keep your head down for a couple of years and just execute a business plan and not fake work. I see a lot of fake work. People pick up a call, they make a few calls, they play in their email a couple hours, blah, 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 and the day's done. That's fake work. If you can really work and execute, the rest is going to happen. It's just staying consistent.
Absolutely, Brian. You are a rock star, a mega rock star. I definitely appreciate your time. I definitely appreciate you having this conversation with us. It's going to help a lot of guys. All I can say is thanks, my friend.
No problem. Thank you. It was great to meet you. Standing there next to Tom Ferry, you're a rock star, and I feel like I have a lot to learn from you as well. I'd like to spend more time doing that, but I'm going to open myself up if there are any agents that need advice. I'm here in Bend, Oregon. We've got a great team, and you'll find my information. My cell phone's everywhere. I'm happy to catch up.
Absolutely. Thanks a lot. Appreciate everything.
Thank you. I'm gonna turn this off and go out skiing with my kids.
All right, do that.
Take care, Andy.
All right, my friend. Take care. Thanks.
See you later. Bye.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes.
Just want to say thank you. I've got it off now, but I just want to say thanks. I appreciate it more than you know.
Oh, hey, I think this is awesome what you're doing. So how long have you been doing podcasts?
I just started this year. And so do you know Eileen Rivera?
I've heard the name. I don't know her personally, no.
She's a coach. She and I, there's several Tom Ferry coaches, and we were all in mastermind groups together back when Tom first started. So I've got a lot of friends there. And I had a few of them on, and you're actually the 4th person that I've had on. The first person was a guy that's been in the business for about a year, and he did like 19 deals his first year. And I think like 17 of them were listings and 2 were buyer deals, which is great for a new agent. You know what I mean? So I have Dave Robles and I've had Eileen Rivera, both are Tom Ferry people, and then you. So
fun.
I'm excited. And I'll send you a link when it goes up. It's called EliteAgentSuccess.com, and I'll send you a link and you'll get a chance to see it.
Great. So what's your plan on this? Is it just to spread awareness about you, or do you have are you trying to monetize this, or what's the outcome?
No, well, I'm not looking to, when we say monetize it, my goal is to ultimately, I'm pretty sure it's going to end up helping me recruit agents.
Yeah.
What I find is agents just don't know. They want to hear from people like you or I, or agents that are doing it, not necessarily just, what they see maybe at a, it's kind of like what people see at a Tom Ferry event or a Mike Ferry event or any of these guys. Oftentimes you guys are larger than life figures. I'm just sort of bringing them in saying, hey, here's 15, 20 minutes of a guy that's actually doing it.
Yeah.
So ultimately, I'm sending this out to about 5,000 or 6,000 agents in the area. And hopefully some of the guys will get referral business from it. Some of you guys will get referral business. But I'm just trying to educate agents. Literally, when you see the website, it'll say, my mission is to help agents grow their business.
I love it. And I'm going to ask you, I'd love to, do a podcast, and maybe if you have a few tips on kind of how you're doing it, kind of the nuts and bolts of it, if you've got any kind of quick suggestions, I would love to mimic it a little bit. And because,
Sure.
I don't have big growth plans for my team, but I'd love to spread the word, to have good agents come to me and ask to be on the team.
Yeah. Yeah. It's again, as a tool, and again, I'll send you the link when it goes up. It's just so that other agents can see what's going on. They know that I do some coaching, of course. At my company, I've got about 40 agents here. I've got property management. I've got escrow. The goal is just to let guys know that here's a real guy that's doing what they want to do. Here's someone who's like a mega farm person, and here's someone else that's, was a mega REO agent, then switched over to retail. And they're actually doing what, I again, a lot of agents I find they're stuck. And I'm not saying the mega guys, I'm saying guys that do, let's say 12 deals or less, and they'd like to grow their business. So the hope is I'll recruit some people from it. And, the other side of it is I'm always out to help. If I can help.
That's awesome. Quick question. I don't want to hold you on any longer, but do you have a private brokerage? Is it your brokerage?
Well, it's a national franchise. It's Real Living Premier Realty.
Okay.
And the franchise is owned, the parent company is owned by Warren Buffett.
Yep.
My sister company is Berkshire Hathaway Home Services.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you know who Gino Blafari is. He's the guy who started Intero. Mm-hmm. He's actually chairman of actually all of us right now, Berkshire Hathaway, Intero, and Real Living. We're all under the same umbrella. But basically, it's a national franchise.
Interesting, because I'm at the point right now, I'm carrying our local office. I do about a third of the commissions, and there's 80 agents there. Okay. And, Sotheby's is one of those models that never has a split stop. They don't, I have a cap on the local office, but the franchise, the international fee never goes away. And they don't really love teams. They don't, unlike Keller Williams or whatever. I don't want to switch brands just to switch brands to save a few bucks, because I think that's short-sighted. But I do have a lot of energy, and eventually I'm going to run out when I've considered doing my own office. But I'm struggling with that, whether I do independent, whether, most of the franchises are taken in my town, and I'm just trying to figure out what the future of I want to create a little bit of an exit strategy.
Right,
I don't know what to do.
Right. With that being said, when you talk about having your own brokerage, tell me what that looks like 5 years from now.
Well, so what I'm trying to, what's funny is I honestly have an agent a week come to me asking me to join my team, and I say no, because if I add them, Sotheby's wants another, minimum of $15,000 plus desk fees, plus, and I've got about a $25,000 a year not to cover for them. Mm-hmm. And it's a lot for me to do. And I would be willing to do it for my own company, but just to build another agent up, and I've become the de facto training program for Sotheby's, because I took 4 of their underachieving agents that did $2 million of volume, and I turned them into $20 million a year agents, because there was no training in place. There was no lead. I'm going to eventually just grow them all up into agents that are going to just stay at Sotheby's as an agent. Right. And I figured that what I'm doing with this team, if I were to replicate it on a bigger scale, I think I could fill an office with 20, 30 good agents. I think that could live beyond me, and eventually I could get to the point where I'm working a couple days a week, and I don't want to retire too early, but I'd love some balance of life. And I think that there's some real, we're a small market, and I've made myself a big fish in a small market. And I think that I think I could lock down a percentage of this market pretty easily.
So a couple of things. A person in your shoes, absolutely. If you did exactly what you're saying, I mean, I think you no doubt you would be the guy in town, because so many people would just flock to your new brokerage because you're the guy. When you talk about being an independent or being a franchise, you're going to have to give up a little bit. It could be whatever the franchise fee is. Let's say if it's 5 or 8% or something like that. But all the bells and whistles that you get that all the agents want, that's the nice part of it. The websites, the marketing, all the stuff that comes in, that back office that they already have.
Yep.
You don't want to have to put all that together. It's just not worth it, And what you give up, I think it's to be that big name brand, that franchise. And quite honestly, Real Living is the only real estate company with like a real estate related name. Like Century 21 technically isn't, that's not a real estate related name, so to speak. Remax isn't. Real Living is the third most popular, it's the third most recognized name in the country. It's Century 21 first, Remax second, Real Living third, and Keller Williams fourth. I don't know that you could think of, I don't think that you could do better than that. If you were to consider being who you are in your market, oh my gosh, you'd crush everybody. And going into it correctly with the right place, with the right franchise, your kids will love you.
Yeah, I'm pulling up Real Living right now. It's just not a brand up here in this area at all.
And by the way, nor is that the case here. It's
Yeah.
really popular in the Midwest and on the East Coast. I mean, there's guys that are doing, well, whatever, really big business mainly on the East Coast, but they're just starting to grow a lot out this way, like in Orange County, which is that's where we were in San Diego. I think you know how expensive Orange County is. There's one guy that has 3 franchises in Orange County alone.
Interesting.
I just think where it's going, and the guy who's running it now, oh my gosh, he's a marketing savant.
Well, I'll take a look at that. That's interesting. But well, hey, thank you. I've asked enough of your time as well. So
I'll tell you something really quick. There's a guy I'd love for you to talk to. I'll just make the introduction. I won't have anything to do with this, but I think it's worth a conversation, a private conversation with the guy. His name is Troy. He handles everything on basically the West Coast. So if you are interested, like I said, no pressure, no anything. It would just be a conversation, and let him talk to you about it. Because you're the prime. I mean, I don't get anything from it. Don't get me wrong. But I think it's great if I had a chance to open up a real living where you are. I mean, to be the new fish on the block. And by the way, we all know, well, for the most part, most people don't list with the company. They list with the agent. So it's the quality of the agents that you have there. We know you're going to have quality agents. But to be that brand that everybody flocks to, oh my gosh, that's great, man.
Yeah, well, we'll see. I might not have enough energy to do it. We'll see.
Yeah. Would it be okay if I put you in contact with a guy?
Sure, happy to.
Yeah, I mean,
you just make sure he knows that I'm not reaching out because this is such a small market.
Right. It would be a private conversation. You guys, I mean, it's just exploration.
Yeah, I appreciate that. No, I think it would be educational at the very least. I would be open to that. Thank you.
I'll make that happen. I appreciate you being on this, having this conversation with us.
Cool. I'm looking forward to it. I can't wait to hear it. And then I might replicate some of this if you don't mind.
That'll work. Sounds good.
Are you going to, what's your next ferry event?
I think it's in May. It's called Shift.
Okay. Shift.
Yeah, I think it's called Shift. It used to be called like Leadership Summit. It's usually for brokers and owners and leaders. So it's every year. I believe it's in May, but they just changed the title about 2 months ago to Shift. So that's the next event I'll be at.
Yeah, they don't have me on for that because I'm a principal broker, but I don't run my own brokerage. So that's not even on my radar, that event. But I'm going to be out that Team Plus event in May out in Vancouver.
Nice. That should be fun. Well, that's not that far for you, right?
No, it's quick flight.
Yeah, that'll be fun. Thank you.
Awesome.
As you know, Vancouver is a beautiful place.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It should be fun. Might take the family. We'll see.
Nice. All right, my friend.
Take care, Andy.
Take care. Thanks.
See you. Bye.